The 1950s transformed America in ways most people never talk about. While families were moving to the suburbs and buying their first televisions, something else was happening in backyards across the nation. Fruits that had been growing in American gardens for centuries were suddenly disappearing. Some were banned outright, others were quietly discouraged until they vanished completely. What happened to these 20 garden fruits will change how you think about that seemingly innocent decade. Number 20. Elderberries. Walk through any old farmstead today, and you might find ancient elderberry bushes still standing, remnants of a time when every household knew how to turn these dark purple berries into medicine and food. But in the 1950s, everything changed. Reports started coming in about children getting sick after eating raw elderberries, and the panic spread faster than the facts. The problem wasn't the berries themselves. It was that people had forgotten the old ways. Your great-grandmother knew you had to cook elderberries properly. The raw berries, leaves, and bark contain compounds that'll make you sick as a dog. But cook them right, and you've got one of nature's most powerful immune boosters, packed with more antioxidants than almost any other fruit. Agricultural extension offices didn't have time for nuance. They were worried about lawsuits and liability, so they did what bureaucracies do best. They issued warnings. They discouraged planting. And within a generation, most American families had no idea elderberries even existed, let alone how to use them safely. Number 19. Gooseberries. Here's where things get really interesting. Gooseberries didn't disappear because they were dangerous to people. They disappeared because of trees. White pine trees, to be specific. See, gooseberries were hosting a fungus called white pine blister rust, and that fungus was killing America's timber industry. The federal government didn't mess around. They launched what can only be described as a war on gooseberries, made it flat out illegal to grow them, sell them, or transport them anywhere near valuable pine forests. Agents went door to door, forcing families to rip out bushes that had been feeding them for generations. Think about that for a minute. These tart little berries had been in American gardens since colonial times. Perfect for pies, loaded with vitamin C, tough as nails. And they were ordered destroyed to save the timber industry. Some states have lifted the ban now, but the damage was done. Most Americans today wouldn't recognize a gooseberry if you handed them one. Number 18. Black currants. Black currants got hit even harder than gooseberries. The government considered them the primary host for that same pine-killing fungus, so the prohibition was absolute. From the early 1900s straight through the 1960s, black currants were essentially erased from American agriculture. European immigrants who'd brought these bushes from the old country watched in disbelief as federal agents destroyed plants they'd carefully tended for decades. The irony is almost painful. Black currants have more vitamin C than oranges. They make jams and cordials that Europeans still prize today. But in America, we forgot they existed. Even now, most Americans have never tasted a black currant. We're reintroducing them in some areas, but we lost 60 years of cultivation knowledge. 60 years of recipes and techniques that used to pass from grandmother to grandchild. Number 17. Mulberries. This one will make you shake your head. Mulberries weren't banned for disease or safety. They were banned for being messy. That's right. The 1950s obsession with perfect suburban lawns couldn't tolerate a tree that dropped fruit naturally. Those sweet purple berries that kids had been climbing trees to eat for generations. They stained sidewalks, they stained driveways, they stained cars. And in the new suburban America, that was unforgivable. City councils started passing ordinances. Homeowner associations declared war. Ancient mulberry trees were cut down in the name of property values. The fruit was never the problem. Mulberries are delicious and nutritious. but they didn't fit the aesthetic of controlled, sterile landscaping that defined the era. We started preferring ornamental trees that looked pretty, but produced nothing you could actually eat. That shift in thinking changed American yards forever. Number 16. Persimmons. American persimmons fell victim to ignorance, pure and simple. Too many people bit into unripe persimmons and got a mouthful of astringency so intense it felt like your mouth was turning inside out. Word spread that persimmons were inedible, and people started cutting down perfectly good trees. The tragedy is that a ripe persimmon tastes like honey and dates had a baby. Native Americans knew to wait until after the first frost. Early settlers learned the same lesson. But by the 1950s, that knowledge was fading fast. People had lost touch with seasonal eating, with understanding how fruits change as they ripen. So persimmons got a reputation as a terrible fruit when the only terrible thing was our timing. Number 15. Service berries. Here's a perfect example of how marketing can erase food. Service berries didn't disappear. They just stopped being food. Nurseries started selling them as ornamental shrubs, pretty things for spring flowers and fall color. They never mentioned that the berries were edible. Most homeowners who planted service berries in the 1950s had no idea they could eat the fruit. No idea that these berries had kept Native Americans and settlers alive for centuries. The berries taste incredible, sweet with a hint of almond. But that knowledge was deliberately suppressed in favor of selling them as decorative bushes. It's like buying a chicken and being told it's just for looking at. The food value was right there, and we were trained to ignore it. Number 14. Pawpaws. Pawpaws are America's largest native fruit. They taste like a tropical vacation, all banana and mango, and vanilla rolled into one creamy package. And agricultural extensions in the 1950s actively discouraged people from growing them. Why? Because they didn't fit the new commercial model. Pawpaws don't ship well. They go bad fast. You can't harvest them with machines. None of that mattered to your great-grandfather, but it mattered to the emerging supermarket system. Extension agents pushed farmers toward crops that could be commercialized, standardized, shipped across the country in refrigerated trucks. Pawpaws require patience too. 4 to 8 years before you get fruit. The 1950s didn't do patience. We wanted instant gratification and foolproof crops. So this extraordinary native fruit was abandoned in favor of things that fit the industrial agriculture model. Number 13. Beach plums. Beach plums disappeared along with the coastline they grew on. As developers built beach resorts and housing developments in the 1950s, these salt-tolerant native plums lost their habitat. And here's the thing. Nobody thought to cultivate them elsewhere. These plums made jams and jellies, with a flavor commercial plums can't touch. They thrived in harsh coastal conditions that would kill most fruit trees. But agricultural focus was shifting inland to operations that could be mechanized and scaled up. Regional specialties didn't matter anymore. Wild stands got bulldozed. The knowledge of how to use beach plums vanished with them. Another piece of regional food culture erased in the name of development. Number 12. Wild grapes. Wild grapes went from food source to public enemy during the suburban boom. These vigorous vines didn't respect property lines. They climbed trees, spread along fences, grew wherever they wanted. And the 1950s demanded that every plant stay exactly where humans put it. The new herbicides made it easy to kill them off. Just spray the fence line, and those productive vines were gone. Never mind that they made jams and jellies with more flavor than anything you could buy. Never mind that they required zero care and thrived in local conditions. They were messy and uncontrolled, and that was enough to condemn them. Number 11. Crab apples. Crab apples got relegated to ornamental status because Americans decided that bigger and sweeter was always better. Nurseries started breeding crab apples solely for flowers and disease resistance. Some varieties don't even produce fruit anymore. But traditional crab apples make jellies and cider that put regular apples to shame. That tartness adds complexity you can't get any other way. They're also tougher than regular apple trees, producing fruit when late frosts would wipe out a standard orchard. The 1950s saw tart as inferior. We wanted everything mild and sweet and convenient. So crab apples lost their place in the kitchen and became just another pretty tree. Number 10. Chokecherries. The name didn't do these berries any favors. Chokecherry sounds dangerous, and in the safety-obsessed 1950s, that was enough to scare people away. Never mind that Native Americans and settlers had been eating them safely for centuries. Raw chokecherries are astringent enough to make you pucker. But cook them with sugar, and you get jellies and syrups that are absolutely incredible. They thrive in harsh climates where other fruits give up. But they require knowledge. And the 1950s preferred foods that required nothing but opening your mouth. Number 9. Huckleberries. Commercial blueberry operations exploded in the 1950s, and huckleberries became collateral damage. Consumers were taught that bigger, sweeter, more uniform berries were better. Huckleberries, with their intense flavor and small size, were dismissed as inferior. But anyone who's tasted both will tell you that huckleberries have a complex, wine-like flavor that makes blueberries taste bland. They're more nutritious, too. They grow where blueberries can't, but they can't be mass-produced and shipped nationwide, so agricultural research abandoned them completely. Number 8. Mayhaws. Mayhaws were perfect for the Gulf Coast and useless for standardized national agriculture. These small tart fruits ripen in May and make a jelly that's legendary in the South. But the 1950s wanted crops that could grow anywhere, be produced anywhere, shipped anywhere. Regional specialties were seen as inefficient obstacles rather than treasures, so mayhaws got discouraged outside their native range and gradually forgotten even there. Number 7. Sand cherries. Sand cherries got reclassified from food to erosion control, and that was the end of them in most gardens. Extension offices started recommending them for stabilizing soil and nothing else. Never mind that they produce tart cherries, perfect for preserves in climates where other fruits won't survive. They're incredibly tough, surviving drought and cold and terrible soil. But the 1950s wanted large, sweet fruits for fresh eating. These productive little shrubs didn't fit the mold. Number 6. Autumn olives. This one's ironic. The government promoted autumn olives in the 1950s for erosion control. Then they spread so successfully that they had to be banned as invasive species. The nutritious berries, loaded with lycopene, were beside the point once the plants started taking over entire ecosystems. Number 5. Cornelian cherries. These European imports were seen as too foreign for 1950s America. We wanted American bred varieties, American flavors. Never mind that Cornelian cherries have more vitamin C than oranges and ripen when nothing else is available. They seemed foreign, and that was enough. Number 4. Medlars. Medlars require bledding, a process where you let the fruit soften and partially decay before eating. The result looks rotten, but tastes like spiced applesauce. The 1950s wanted fruits that looked perfect and could be eaten immediately. Medlars didn't stand a chance. Number 3. Quinces. As Americans stopped preserving their own food, quinces lost their purpose. These fruits are inedible raw, but transform into golden, fragrant preserves when cooked. When families quit making preserves, quinces seemed pointless. Number 2. American chestnuts. This wasn't policy. This was tragedy. A fungal blight wiped out nearly 4 billion trees by the 1950s. These massive trees had supported entire communities. Their loss was one of the greatest ecological disasters in American history. Number 1. Barberries. Barberries were banned to protect wheat crops from stem rust. The government forced homeowners to destroy bushes that had been in their families for generations. The intensely tart berries, prized in Persian cooking, were sacrificed for grain production. These 20 fruits tell the story of how America changed in the 1950s. We went from diverse regional food systems to standardized commercial agriculture, from productive landscapes to purely ornamental ones. Many of these fruits are making a comeback now, as gardeners rediscover what we lost. Hit that subscribe button and comment which fruit you'd like to see come back.